Hi, so Twilight. I avoided reading Twilight for a very long time. I basically just assumed it was another vampire book. I'd walk by it and I'd go, oh, another vampire book. Um, but I finally read it when I had to do my plane ride to Ireland. Grabbed Twilight, sat on the plane, read the whole book on the plane ride. Then, on my way back from Ireland, I bought New Moon, read this book on the plane ride back from Ireland. So I basically went through 2 books in one trip, something that doesn't always happen. So I really liked the way that Twilight was a good, fun, easy read. I also especially liked the fact that instead of being focused so much on the vampires, it was more focused on the relationship between Bella and Edward. And that was really interesting to me. It was a good twist. It was a good way of handling the story, because if you take out the vampires, it's just a romance. And I know some people, for that reason, thought it was boring, but for me, that's what made it alive, because it was about people. And when stories are focused on people, that's what makes them really fascinating to me. So then the movie's coming out. And I read the book in part because the movie is coming out. And there's this whole phenomenon on the internet about Twilighters. And I've always find it very fan culture, very interesting. There was, with the X-Files, they called themselves X-Files. There was a name for Buffy fans. I don't quite remember what the name for Buffy fans was. But there's all these Trekkies from Star Trek. I find cultural phenomena of fans culture very interesting. I never quite label myself in the fan culture. Like, I wouldn't call myself a Twilighter. Even though I've enjoyed the books, I don't feel that I had quite the passion for it that a lot of people have. Except when I went to see the movie, and I was pretty calm about going to see the movie. I really wanted to see it, but I went to the movie theater and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm watching the movie and Edward comes on the screen, and the whole time, the whole movie, I'm just crazy excited, crazy happy watching this movie, because it ended up being really good. And every time Edward came on the screen, I just giggled with, like, schoolgirl, oh my god, he's so hotness. I can't believe what a geek I am. It was that moment that I went, wow, I'm way more into this than I thought I was into this. Yeah. I don't know what. I always avoid it thinking of myself as one of those super excited fans, I guess, because I'm a little bit shy and embarrassed by it. Maybe because my family makes fun of me all the time for being a geek. And most of the time I'm usually proud of my geekness, but I can't help but be shy about it too. So it's this double-edged sword of really excited about my geekness, proud of it, and then embarrassed by it too. So maybe that's why I'm so reluctant to call myself a Twilighter, even though I'm super excited. I really... But see, yet I haven't read the last 2 books, Eclipse and Breaking Dawn. Whereas I suppose somebody who really is a Twilighter would have read those already. There is one thing in the Twilight series that I find problematic, and it's this whole concept of I can't live without you. And you see it in Romeo and Juliet too. It's this concept that if the other person dies or something happens to them, or if they leave you, then your whole life becomes non-existent, or that the character wants to commit suicide, like in Romeo and Juliet. They think the other person's dead, so they kill themselves. And you see that in Twilight too. And I find that deeply problematic. I'm not comfortable with the concept that love's so intense that the other person that the person who loves you, or if you love that person, you want to kill yourselves if you can't be with that person. I'm not comfortable with that concept, especially in a book that's geared towards young adults. Now, I know some people will think that's very romantic. I don't. I think love is meant to be an affirmation of life, and that it's more complicated than that, that you can love everything, that love is huge, that it can contain everything, and the fact that I just can't imagine ever wanting to kill myself. And I know Bella doesn't, but Edward does. And I hope I'm not revealing anything by saying this, but I don't think I am. It's fairly open in the book. Anyway, it's not a sign of true love to me that the other person wants to kill themselves. Now, it's very understandable that because it's about vampires, love would be tied to death in this, because the history of vampires, sex and death are together, and vampires represent sex in a lot of cases. But still, it's just one of those things, problematic for me, and I probably could explain it better, but I'm not going to today. I do have the sniffles. Sorry if my voice sounds weird. I have the sniffles. Anyways, I'm going to kind of wrap it up. I just wanted to point that out because it was problematic to me. Do you find that problematic? What are your thoughts on Twilight? And what do you think about the whole concept of I can't live without you in romance? Do you think it's valid? So, yeah. Have a good night, and I'll see you later.